day 2 of the winter arc. So let's just go ahead and get off started with what I was pretty much doing today. I went ahead, did my abs, went ahead, like the 100 crunches, the drag raises, or whatever the hell that they're called. Beyond that, in terms of fitness, I went outside, I was punching that tree some more. You can kind of see that my knuckles are getting a bit redder here. They're actually becoming quite a bit tender, and it hurts if anything like rubs up against them. So I know that I'm making some progress in that realm. I mean, looking at them still, like they're definitely getting some more marks on them. Developing some type of scabbing or like blood spots on this knuckle here. But yeah, my fingers kind of start to hurt from that. But I just continue to keep on pushing through. Before though, in terms of progressive overload for it, I was originally punching the tree for 30 reps for each hand. I've now moved up to 40 reps per hand. So I'm still doing it for the same time frame, but I'm getting more reps in per hand. So in essence, I'm like kind of putting some progressive overload in there when it comes to it, but not in terms of like time value. Um, Another big thing today, beyond those two, in terms of self improvement, is I've been looking through a lot of studies and specifically exercise variations still. I'm starting to compile a list of like top tier muscle building exercises in comparison to actually what's normally considered to be good, like in terms of bodybuilding. So eventually, like, I'll let you guys kind of know about that, usually throughout the days of the week. Like, when I'm hitting chest and triceps, like, I'll go through, like, what bodybuilders usually do, and then I'll go ahead and do what the actual most optimal way, like, the most optimal exercises. I'll kind of explain about that a little bit as well, just to kind of help further along like your progress if you're going to be going ahead doing the gym like I am during this winter season. Um, but yeah, just a lot of going ahead, reading through studies, watching workout videos, YouTube videos on different exercises and stuff like that. I think it'll be pretty good, pretty educational. Um, Something I was asked as well about was, I know you're going to be watching this, but diet. Like, which one do I prefer? Was it chicken and rice, or was it going to be beef and potatoes? And I think it's really important to kind of have like a balanced diet. All right. And I mean, everybody says something about like a balanced diet, but I mean specifically in terms of like the meats here. Like your protein intake should be well balanced. Like I think if you're going into a cutting phase, go ahead and have chicken like 3 times a week, right? You have chicken breasts lean 3 times a week. Have one of those. I want you to have some type of fish or like seafood for 2 days. That'll give you the omega fatty acids that you get from the fish, which are really good for boosting testosterone. And then the same thing applies to the saturated fats that would be in something like beef. The beef fats are actually really important to boosting testosterone as well as like beef will help keep you and giving you that fuller look compared to just when you're eating chicken. It's just lean constantly. Um, in terms of carbohydrates, when it comes to dieting and bulking, I think rice is really optimal for when you're going ahead and doing your diet phase. Not only is it lower in calories than something like potatoes, you don't need a whole lot to really make them. Well, that's not necessarily true. You don't need a whole lot as good. They're both potatoes and rice are pretty fucking bland. But you go ahead, eat rice during your dieting phase. Don't worry if it's like brown rice, if you're eating plain white rice, jasmine rice, none of that shit fucking matters. All rice has pretty much the same macronutrients, and that's all that you need to worry about. And you shouldn't be worrying about macronutrients coming from your carb source, anyways. You need to be worried about the carbs coming from your carb source. What I mean by that is like it would be a great like pre-workout meal. It's just like some rice and like ground beef or something like that, or maybe some ground chicken, and just eat that before you go to the gym. Give it about 30 minutes to fully set in, and then you go ahead, hit your lift along with your pre-workout or whatever else you're taking. Now, in terms of bulking, potatoes are just the superior option. Like they end up having a lot more. They give you more of that fiber, especially if you're eating like the fucking potato skins. The potato skin also has a lot of the vital nutrients that actually comes from the potato. But in terms of just raw potato, like no skin, nothing, it's a very starchy substance. So you're gonna end up having a lot more calorie input from that as compared to you would with rice. Rice is a lot more. How do I say it here? Rice is a lot. I can't even like figure out the words to really say. But what I'm trying to say is potatoes in essence because it's starchy. It's also got to go through another step process to go ahead and before your body can start properly utilizing the carbohydrates from it. Well, compared to rice, it's just pure carb. Like there's not a lot of process that goes into converting it over into the usable carbs that your body needs to use. Um, in terms of things like vegetables, I think that also kind of comes down to like what you're doing, but not really as much. Like broccoli is a good option, carrots good option. I think one that a lot of people really tend to sleep on a lot though is specifically asparagus. Asparagus is good, especially if you're trying to lose weight, especially in the fat process, because your fat also holds on to a lot of water. So as long as you're taking your creatine and drinking like a gallon of water a day, that way you're making sure you're not getting your cramps. What that asparagus is going to go ahead and do, it's a natural diuretic, so you're going to end up pissing out like a lot of water weight in the process. So that automatically is going to go ahead lower your lower the amount of weight that you have on your body, and that's going to end up showing in your physique because when you're taking your creatine as well and drinking all your water that you need, that's going to make your muscles fuller, as well as the fact that you're just going to be slimming down as well. Now, also, I'd like to mention in terms of like body recomposition, cutting, bulking cycles, that kind of thing. One of the new studies that I was recently reading about was that bulking doesn't have to necessarily be insane. Like, yeah, you kind of got to be a bit on the insane level if you're a fucking like 280 plus pound lean bodybuilder, who's sitting up there on stage competing professionally for Mr. Olympia. Is that going to be most people's scenario? No. They just want to get jacked, look lean. So if there's anything that I would recommend, it's going into a 5 to 600 calorie surplus, and that surplus alone is going to be enough to fuel your body to go ahead and give it the optimal muscle growth in that direction, in the upward curve there. The reason why you don't want to go completely overboard as well is like when you end up going overboard with all the calories and everything like that, you just end up getting a lot of fat in general. And then if you ever do go ahead, well, not when you do go ahead, but when you go ahead and cut down, that's going to take a massive toll, like not only on your psyche, because you just went from, oh man, I'm like 300 pounds, and now I'm trying to cut down to like, this is a very extreme scenario, but 300 pounds down to like 260, you know? Like, you gotta constantly fight your mind to continue to tell yourself, no, I can't eat that. And your body's gonna fight back and say, well, my metabolism craves the extra nutrients, it craves the extra calories to go ahead and fuel me. If you can go ahead and cut down first, and then do 5 to 600 calorie intervals all the way upward, and just continue, pretty much a lean bulk. Lean bulk is the best way to actually bulk according to science now. There's no proof that going overly excessive with your calories, taking in an extra 3,000 to 5,000 calories a day is actually going to be any more useful than just 5 to 600 calories. This is shown all the way back when, back in the 80s, when you had Arnold and everybody like that. They didn't necessarily believe in the whole entire thing, but there was one man, Mike Mentzer, who was a very big proprietor of, oh, when you're going ahead and bulking, you should only do it in 5 to 600 calorie surplus because you want to stay as lean as possible the entire time. And that also goes ahead and applies to when you're wanting to go into bodybuilding like competition as well. Because when you're getting closer and closer to your deadline, I mean, bodybuilders usually go ahead and take like 3 months to go ahead and like fully cut down all the weight that they built during the entire off season bulking. Meanwhile, if you go ahead and just do the 5 to 600 calories, progressively overload that over time, of course, you know, oh, 3 weeks are up, let's go ahead, up the calories a little bit, you know, and you continue to progressively do that, you're not only going to end up gaining a lot more muscle in the long run, but when you go ahead and do that insane cut, you're not going to be cutting into your muscle storage as much as you would your fat storage. So your fat's going to be taken up first because your body's still trying to maintain all that muscle that you already have. Another big thing that I got to say about that is, since Mike Mentzer really liked that. He really wanted to go ahead 5 to 600 calories. It made it so that his cut time pre-competition was about, you know, like a month, maybe a month and a half. So he was able to bulk up for way longer than other guys, and that caused him to be, you know, get a perfect score in the Mr. Universe, competition 3 years in a row with a 300 rating, which is the only person who's ever been able to do that in history so far. Now, one more thing I'd like to say in terms of cutting at that point would be, when you're going ahead and cutting, for instance, you don't want to do insane amounts of cardio or anything like that. Like, not insane amounts or insanely high intensive cardio. Because all that really does is that it pulls from your glycogen storage. Your glycogen is what stays inside your muscles, and that's what fuels you during your workouts and such. So, when you do anything that's highly intensive, you cut into your body's natural storage that's sitting in your muscles, wanting to be used for your muscles. Now, on the contrary, if you go ahead, do a light to, I guess, somewhat intermediate, cardio session, you want to be able to do your cardio in a way to where you're able to have a full-on conversation with the person next to you on the treadmill while you're walking down the street. That's the kind of cardio that you want, because instead of pulling from your glycogen storage, what it's actually going to do is going to end up pulling from your fat storage instead. That's going to be way more useful to keeping your overall mass that you gain while on your bulk. Now, I will say that if you're anywhere under 200 pounds currently, like, bro, you need to bulk. Like, it's that simple. Like, just bulk, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie, you're kind of skinny. Like, just go ahead and do it. But when you do go ahead and bulk, like, keep the main things that I kind of told you in general. I mean, if you're the normal person, going ahead and getting to 200 pounds of lean mass is going to be pretty much almost impossible, unless if you're fucking like 6'6", you know. That's a different story. But if you're a shorter person, you know, you're just trying to bulk up, gain a good bit of muscle, definitely go ahead and bulk. Do that this season, and then, you know, 3 months from now, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you to start. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you to start cutting. Like, I want to make sure you have that kind of beach body kind of style. That way, if you're, you know, at the river or something, or if you're at the beach, you know, you're sitting out there with your shirt off, with ripped up abs, looking like Rambo, you know. But I want you guys to go ahead. If you're under 200 pounds, bulk. If you're already a big guy, I mean, you can bulk if you want to. I'd recommend going ahead cutting. Keep in mind what I told you about the building of muscle in terms of bulking and cutting.